Alright guys, for the week of April 13th through the 17th, we are beginning an entirely new unit. So we're done with World War II, and we're going to look at the post-war world. Now Unit 8 goes from 1945 to the 1980s. This covers what's called the Cold War, or sometimes called a bipolar world. In that, instead of having a whole bunch of countries that could influence the world, such as the United States, England, France, Germany, Japan, Russia, you have two countries that can influence the world, and everybody else kind of has to follow what they decide. And those are the United States and the Soviet Union. Now, this conflict never actually turned into full scale war. That's why we call it the Cold War. And this lasted for about 50 years. So, we're going to start by looking at this. We're going to look at some things like what is the Cold War, what happened, but we're also going to look at some things inside the United States. So right now, for this next week, what you will do is you will go ahead and click right here on Unit 8, not Unit 7, Unit 8. You'll go ahead and click on that. And now I've made some changes here to make it a little more understandable. Each week's worth of work is going to be in its own folder. So after the 18th, there'll be another folder for the week after that, and there'll be another folder after that, because we have about 4 or 5 more weeks left of school. So after you go ahead and click in Unit 1, we're going to look at the Cold War. So if we click on this, you can see there are 4 assignments for this week. The first one is watch a video, answer questions. You guys do know how to do this. Pretty easy peasy. So I'm not going to go over that again. Down here it says who started the Cold War. Here you're going to look at some primary source documents and answer the questions here. What I would like you to do is on your screens, you should see something over here that says submit assignment. I just want you to copy paste these questions into there and answer them. Now, where are you going to get that information from? So you're going to go ahead and click on this. This is a PowerPoint that you can go through that gives you some information. Here is some sources for the timeline of how the Cold War started, going all the way back to during World War II with the Yalta Conference, when the United States and the Soviet Union were already thinking about how are we going to organize the world after. There's documents A, B, C, D, and then this is the guiding questions again. So this is where I just kind of cut the questions so you guys could do that. But you're going to go through these documents and this PowerPoint, and you're going to answer these questions about whose fault was it that we had a Cold War. Was it the Americans' fault? Was it the Soviets' fault? Was it a little bit of both? And I want you to make a decision for yourselves based off the sources I've given you and decide who started the Cold War and was it really inevitable. So that's the second assignment you'll do. The assignment after that is the GI Bill and its impact on America. So we talked a little bit about how World War I affected veterans after the war and what happened with Americans. We talked very, very briefly about the veterans wanting the money that they were owed by the government that was promised to them early because the Great Depression started. So as World War II was happening, the political leadership of the United States didn't want a repeat of these riots and protests that veterans put up. So they created what's called the GI Bill. Now the GI Bill is still with us. If you decide after high school to go into the service, you can gain all the benefits of this bill that was originally written in 1944 to help World War II veterans. It's actually pretty nice. It can give you up to $40,000 for college. You can take a VA loan for your house where you only need to put $1 down instead of 20% as is normal. And it's kind of cool. It's a way we show our respect for our veterans and for the service they've given. So what I would like you to do is go through two documents here. 8.3 are these 3. This is a general summary of the GI Bill. Where you're going to get your information from this first document here, 8.3 GI Bill. Now, when the GI Bill was written, it didn't mention race or gender. So how did African American and women veterans, which there were millions of these people as well, how did they benefit, or did they benefit from the GI Bill? Was it a success for them? Those answers are going to be found down here. Now, here are links. If you want to make your own copy, you can upload them, or you can once again just kind of copy paste this into your submission. You'll see a submission button here. You don't see it with mine because I have teacher view, but over here you'll have a submit button. But we've been doing that all year, so it should be pretty easy for you guys. Now, going back, the final assignment is the baby boom, and you can get all your jokes out. Okay, boomer. But when all these 10 million veterans came back, they all got married and they all started making a lot of babies. This is why we call it the baby boom, because there was an explosion of young children born between 1946 and 1960s. These people are your grandparents. So we're going to look at that. So these children of the baby boom experienced America's greatest decade, the 1950s. This was our time period of greatest economic prosperity. America was truly a leader in the world in terms of social order and technologies, even though the Soviets were rapidly catching up. But the world these boomers lived in as children was an idealized world. Well, unless you were a minority or a woman, but we'll get into that more next week when we talk about the civil rights movement. And how this time period of great economic prosperity, the 1950s and 60s, how it affected minorities and women. But let's just go off the premise that the 1950s were the greatest decade in American history. So what we're going to look at is what's things called Levittowns, baby booms, automobiles, and culture. So first you have your worksheet that you're going to go through, and it's going to ask you a series of questions. I believe there's only 4. Let me just make sure. Yep, only 4. There's only 4 questions, but you're going to have to answer all the different parts of these questions. That's something I saw before, that you guys are not answering all the parts. Please make sure you're answering all the parts. You will do some readings here. So this is the reading about American cars. Down here, well, I don't know why there's a blank page there, but we'll figure that out. Right here, this is about Levittowns, so modern suburbia. So if you guys go to Google Maps, you'll see towns built like this. This was something new, the way towns were built in the 1950s. The first town was called Levittown. It was in New York, on Long Island, and it was a design that we still copy today. And it made housing affordable for the post-war world. And here's some more pictures of the Levittown, and you can kind of look into it. And also, here's some pictures of cars and consumer culture. Now, what I also want you guys to do is look at these videos. Now, they're very short. I think the longest one is only like 7 minutes. It's everything from a song. This is the beginning of rock and roll, started during the 1950s. You can kind of see the transition here with Bobby Darin's Splish Splash. Most of you have probably heard this. History Channel talks about the baby boomers and what they are and who they are and why they're so important to American history. This video right here is about Levittown. This one is about car culture. And this one is just what was life like in the 1950s for the average American. This is the time period of Leave It to Beaver and My Three Sons, and kind of an idealized everyone was happy. There wasn't divorces. Everybody had, a house with a dad and a mom and maybe 2.5 kids, if you had 3 kids or 4 kids, and everybody was just happy. Now, we know reality doesn't often hit the myths. There were still divorces during this time. 50% of women still went to work, in spite of some of the claims, like in this video, that women stayed home and men worked. But by and large, the goal for most Americans was this. Dad goes to work, he goes to work in his little suit, hangs up his hat when he comes home. 2 little kids that are happy, mom who just cooks and cleans all day and is constantly smiling. And that was the kind of cultural goal. All right, so let's talk about the last thing that's in this folder, and I'm actually probably going to move this up to here. This is just a page where I'm going to upload this video, so if you've clicked here and seen the video, you could do that, or if you've gone to my channel beforehand to see it, that's where it is. So if you click on it, you would see a video here, but we can't show the video now because I'm still recording it. So that is your lessons for the week of 4/13 through 4/18. It's only really 4 quick lessons. They shouldn't take you more than 30 minutes a day. And if you want to get them all knocked out early, feel free to do so. Hope you guys are staying safe. I hope you're practicing social distancing and washing your hands. I want to see all of you next year, so let's keep it up. And thanks for watching this video.